Hey everyone, welcome back to episode 18 of the Art of Approach podcast. My name is Tim Bray,
And I'm Will Mulvaney.
and today we have a very special guest. His name is Dalton Daniel. He's a podcaster, and he focuses on self-mastery and mental health. And we had a really great conversation with him today. We're really excited for you to hear it. We talked about all things from balance in relationships to when to approach women in public.
And then we went into dealing with rejection when you're alone, dating apps, and validation.
Yes. So strap in, and we're excited to have you along for this ride. All right, Will, let's kick off Instagram.
Let you get away with them doing 100% of the pursuing. Because again, they're just going to be all over you like white on rice. They'll be stuck to you like a sucker fish to the point where you're going to be wishing you had some time and space away from her to do your own thing. And she'll be begging you and complaining that you're not having enough sex with her, which is the best place to be as a man. How many guys have the problem of their girlfriends or wives desire sex more than them? Most men, it's a complete opposite. But for us 3% dudes, way of life. It's the way it should be. It's our birthright.
All right. Let's talk about these 3% dudes. So what do you guys think about that?
So I have mixed feelings about it. Before the podcast, we were examining it, and Will made some good points on the messaging here. But I do think it is important because I think that guys getting into the dating scene, getting into the relationships as well, when we see a woman that we're really attracted to, we're willing to make all kinds of compromises to have her fit into our box of what we want. And I think what he's saying in this video is that it's important to be aware of the level of interest that the woman has for you. And it's important to be aware of how healthy her mindset is and how open she is to your love and your connection as well. So I think what he's saying in that video is along the lines of just being aware of who you're dealing with, and and keeping in mind that there can be an illusion of interest that you might be creating with these women if you're really into them. It's what I pulled from it.
I just had a thought come to me, which is, I think if you're a needy guy watching this video, you're imagining a girl who's needy for you. So when you're in this place, that's what you want. But if you get to the point where you're actually, healthy with your self-worth and what you bring to the table in a relationship, you probably won't want that. And I don't think it has anything to do with interest. Like, you could be dating someone who's super interested in you, but she also has self-worth and she knows how to not obsess over you to an unhealthy point. So I think there's a
fine line there.
There's a fine line between, and it takes like some maturity to be able to see that, to see like, oh, she's very interested in me, but that doesn't mean she's like dropping everything in her life to obsess over me.
Yeah, absolutely. It gets, it might seem counterintuitive, but I have been in some relationships where that's occurred, and it's not an enjoyable place to be for some reason, because again, it is a fine line. And if they are crossing over and if they are being needy and in that kind of way, it can definitely be a turnoff.
Yeah.
Because I think ultimately what is at the core of at least me as a man is the desire to pursue and the desire to try to measure up to something that is greater. So a woman that's keeping high standards and holding me to high standards is something that I find very attractive.
Yeah. One other thing I was thinking about this, because again, I think he's saying this to men who are not in a place of abundance and not able to like they can't even imagine this being a problem ever. And it reminds me of, I heard Dan Bilzerian, a quote from him one time where he just said like, not most people can't have a sex addiction. Like you won't, because you can't have sex with that many people. Like most guys won't ever have that problem. But that doesn't mean it's not a problem once you are in that place. So I think he's painting a picture of a problem that guys watching will not see as a problem because they can't even imagine having that issue.
A thought I had, I just want to that I want to express is also that if you're in that situation with a woman who is that obsessed with you and is constantly wanting that from you, you'd almost have to ask yourself if you feel the same way towards her, or it's possible that maybe you don't, maybe that there's an imbalance of interest there, and maybe, maybe it's just not balanced. Maybe y'all just not as attracted to one another as you think. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's totally.
Yeah, I think there's something unhealthy there. If that's the dynamic.
For sure. Totally agree.
Yeah. So Tim, in your experience, what did you feel like? Can you compare those relationships? Like the ones where you felt like there was more of a balance?
Yeah.
And have you had the other way where you were more attracted, or
maybe early on? But most of the times when I started to feel that, that sort of resistance to the woman, in the relationship is generally where I started to see that's kind of evolve, that like over neediness. So it was very much along the lines of what you're talking about, Dalton, that there was an imbalance in the relationship when those moments occurred. I think the thing that Corey Wayne is missing here is that he's not mentioning that the man is also feeling the same level of desire to have sex. I think he's maybe assuming that. But if they're both feeling that they're just, completely crazy about each other, just want to get at each other all the time, then sounds good to me. I don't know how you can go wrong with that.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to Reddit. Okay. Should men still approach women in person in public, or is that unwanted now? If not, do we just stick to apps? And I want to highlight one specific response. They said IRL approaches are okay to women if she thinks you're attractive. And if she's not sending signals, there's no way you know this without trying. The women who are complaining are more so complaining that people that they aren't interested in are approaching them. Ignore that crap about it being unwanted. Dating apps are for women to get ego boosts and men to get their ego crushed. No single woman who is looking and also finds you attractive would complain about meeting you in person versus a dating app. If they complain about you approaching in person, that means she wasn't into you in the first place. And that's why. Not because she doesn't want people approaching her in general. Also, as long as it's not disrespectful, the majority of women will enjoy the ego boost that they get from being approached in person. I have to imagine that's more satisfying to them because most women know that most other women also get plenty of attention on dating apps because that's how the apps work. They're for women.
Okay. So, yeah, this is this topic is going on a whole bunch in our ads comments section.
Yes.
A lot. Yes, I do think it's true that a woman is going to generally look at you or receive you differently if she's not attracted to you, probably. I think that's probably...
Maybe you could get away with more.
Get away with more what?
If you're attractive, you can get away with more.
Attractive, like you can go approach her and be like a little bit weird or like not as confident, and she won't like immediately assume anything bad.
maybe, but women are incredibly finicky with attraction. And I don't think, I mean, I've heard on that Ho Math channel, women saying that Ryan Gosling isn't like attractive or something like that. I mean, the thing is, it's such a personal thing. So there's really, I mean, I'm sure there's some guys that are conventionally attractive that maybe can get away with it most of the time, but I wouldn't think that it would be across the board that an attractive guy could go up and be weird. And
I was saying attractive to her.
to her,
If
yeah.
she finds him attractive, like, yes, you could get away with a little bit of like a less confident approach.
Yeah, but I don't know if there's any way that you could really know if you're going to be attracted to her. So, I mean, I wouldn't recommend just being weird just because you're an attractive dude.
No, don't. I was just saying that, yes, there's some truth to that.
Yeah.
To the fact of like the attraction level matters.
Yeah.
But if you are respectful and confident, you might not be attractive to her, but you can still have a very pleasant interaction.
Yeah. And I think that the problem lies in the fact that when maybe like an unattractive guy goes up and approaches a girl and gets a bad reaction, I would say most of the time it probably is around the intention that he has behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And that he's trying to go after and take something from her, take her time, take her, convince her, like hard sell her on a date. Maybe a guy who approaches a girl and isn't really able to gauge the interest level. So he just sticks around, and then she feels like he's going to be around there forever, and she's trying to find a way to get out, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of the bad interactions happen. But I mean, I can't imagine that I am like an exception to the rule on a guy that goes up to approach, because the only time since I've been going out and approaching that I've gotten a bad reaction was at a bar. And it was a group of ladies that were all like in their own circle, didn't want to talk to anybody else, and they gave me like a cold thank you. That was like the worst. So what I just don't understand is like how all these guys on my comment section are like getting the cops called on them. I just don't believe that. I mean, I just don't, because I've gone up and approached a ton of girls, like super attractive girls and what I was doing is I was acknowledging their beauty, and I was saying, I was in wonder with what they were presenting to the world, and they loved it. So yeah, I think it really has to do with, if these guys are unattractive to these women, I think it has to do with the way that they're laying out their approaches.
Yeah. It's a good point.
Yeah.
I guess you're just very attractive, Tim. You get the lucky roll of the dice.
Mean, I would love to accept that. I know I'm somewhat attractive, but I can't imagine that I'm like fucking Johnny Depp or, whatever that level is.
No,
so.
There was some study where, like, there was like a test group of women, and they showed them, a bunch of like conventionally unattractive men, and then a group of conventionally attractive men. And in the unattractive group, and then they asked the women, would you go on a date with this guy? And they showed them a bunch of pictures. For the unattractive men, 25% of the women would say they would go on a date, like on average. And then with the attractive men, it was only 80%. There was no like across the board, this guy's like super attractive, all of us want to date him.
Mm-hmm.
With guys, it was like the opposite. It was like with the hottest girls, it was like 100%. They're all like, yeah, like, I'll go on a date. So like the like conventions of beauty, I guess, for men is completely different. There's no like convention really.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting.
I mean, I'm not gonna be able to speak to this fully, but on that Ho Math site, he was talking about some numbers about how women really only found like a very small sliver of the male population attractive in general. So, I mean, if that's the case, then I can't imagine that I'm in that small sliver of guys that pass the test there, and I'm still not having terrible reactions at all. If anything, they're joyous reactions.
Yeah.
So again,
And the 25% for unattractive dudes, that just means you have to do like 4 times as many approaches and you'll be good. It's like, just do a little bit more.
just do a little bit more.
Yeah.
What I wanted to say about he had asked, is it okay to approach in public? Right? That was the question. What I didn't like about his answer was that he said, like, if you're attractive. I don't think it matters at all. I think it comes down to your intention. Like you were saying, like if you're approaching her, just admiring her beauty and you want to tell her that,
Right.
and you want to ask her out, I don't see anything wrong with that at all. I think that when it comes down to when you're doing it for maybe you're seeking validation or you're seeking something else or sex, then then you're not doing it for the right reason. And they also have reason to be upset with you. I think most people would agree. But I mean, this is all, depends on the person. But I would say, and I think most people would agree with me, that approaching any woman in public is completely okay as long as you have a good intention.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When we did those interviews with those women that we have in our ads, pretty much every single woman was like, as long as it's done respectfully, and really they're speaking to all those points that you were talking about. What are your intentions behind going up and talking to her?
Yeah. As soon as you start thinking about like, am I attractive to her? Then you're like looking for something.
Yeah.
And you're taking the attention off of like her, which is the point of the approach. It's like to give a compliment.
Even I want to say too, even with the approach group, like I try to make sure that if I'm like, when I'm with y'all, when we're doing approaches, or you had asked me to make a couple approaches before coming on here. And like, I went on a walk earlier today. And what I was telling myself was like, okay, if I see a beautiful girl, I'm going to approach her, but I'm not going to approach a girl simply because she's a girl. So I have stuff to talk about,
Nice.
or like, but if I'm genuinely attracted to her, then I'll approach her. Cause that's like, I think that's a good intention.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. We've had that a lot with when we're recording videos. It's like, because there are times where, for me at least, where I'm like, I just need to approach whoever's here because we're recording them and we want to get videos. But then most of the time I'll catch that and be like, no, I want to make this a real approach. So I should be excited about it and want to talk to her.
Yeah. I think, you're wanting to make sure that what you're saying to her is authentic, right? So you're wanting to make sure that it's not just any woman, However, I don't know how much you've listened to our podcast, but we have talked about this concept of the lens of beauty. And the lens of beauty is a mindset state that you can get into where you are essentially aiming to be a man that loves all women. So you're seeing yourself as this advocate, as this man that champions the calling of women in this world and champions the calling of beauty in this world. And when you get into this particular mindset that our program teaches you, you are able to walk past pretty much most women and find some sliver of beauty or something that catches your eye that allows you to give them a compliment or to acknowledge that beauty. And being able to do that opens you up. And so I had this one story that I talked about where Will and I were at Whole Foods, and there's a girl who I liked her hair, and then she kind of turned around, and I also lost my glasses a long time ago, so I wasn't really able to see her face all that well, and I didn't think that what I saw I liked. But by going up and talking to this woman that I didn't think I was all that attracted to, when she opened up, I was like, whoa, what did I almost miss? Because she had an incredible personality and really loved the conversation that we were having. So that speaks to the possibilities that you have when you're able to open up your own lens and see possibility in more women that you might have like typically kind of passed by. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. There's like a, and like you were saying with the lens of beauty, it's like there's like a feminine essence that you can just kind of see in women. And it doesn't mean you have to be like attracted to them or like want anything out of it. But you can still just notice that thing that they have.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's the point too, right? Like we're trying to get into a state of just appreciating a woman and being in like a state of gratitude rather than like, what am I getting out of this? Or
Yeah,
where is this going? And yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you look at it on that spectrum, if you have, a man who loves women on one spectrum and then a man who's very self-interested, the more you can get to the man who loves all women side, the more women are going to see that, and they're going to see that you're not just in it just to get your rocks off, and that you're actually here because this is a very important thing for you to be connected with women, and I think it really resonates to them.
Yeah. Should we go on to the community question?
Community question.
So this was along the lines of how do I approach alone and not let the rejections affect me? So basically, like if you're out by yourself and you see someone you're attracted to and you go talk to them and then you get some type of rejection, it's just like not going to work out there. How do you then continue with your day and like not let that shut you off from any other opportunities to approach?
Yeah, it's a tough one.
And it's really hard when you're alone.
It's really hard when you're alone.
Your stories get going and they don't stop.
Yeah. Yeah. And, that state that it puts you in, it doesn't really set you up for success because, you're kind of overwhelmed with emotions and, that kind of comes off. And if you were to try to do another approach, which is like the thing that would probably help a lot, is if you could do another approach, have a positive outcome come from that. But it's hard to do it in that kind of state, Have you done anything particular, Will, to help with that?
There have been many times where I didn't. So like, say I'm in the grocery store and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do like an extra lap. Just see if I see anyone I like and I'll talk to them. And then I like see someone and I go talk to them and it just doesn't go well. It's just like, whatever, they're grocery shopping and maybe they like blow me off a little bit. Then I'll be like, okay, fuck the lap. I'm going. I'm checking out. This is it. It's really hard to stay in it. One thing, this was a long time ago, but we had talked about it on one podcast when I used to use the approach mindset scripts, which is basically just like you have some things on your phone that are kind of just reminders to yourself of why you're doing this. What kind of mindset you want to be in. I pulled that out after I had a weird interaction. And that was like enough to kind of ground me back and like, this is why I'm doing it. This is a good thing that I'm doing. And then I was able to go and approach someone else after that and not just run out of the store. So I think it's having that kind of groundedness and yeah, just remember why you're doing what you're doing. Because when I get rejected, I'm immediately like, oh, fuck. Like, I forget who I am. I'm like, everything's out the door. I'm just thinking about how this girl rejected me. So I must be like a piece of shit. There must be something wrong with me. And so it's remembering like, oh, no, I'm approaching because I want to make people's day. And this is like a thing that I'm doing with my life is meeting women. Remembering that has been very helpful for me. Have you had experience with anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, I was curious to hear, like what tools like y'all would use. I guess having like that list on your phone, like you were saying, a reminder to remind yourself why you're doing it. I think that's really good. I would say like, this is just an idea, but like, something similar, record like a voice memo, remind yourself, why you're doing that. And listen to it back to remind yourself when something goes wrong. Because, but another thought I had was just like, that's why approaching alone can be so fruitful, is because it's going to be, you're going to feel pretty terrible sometimes after it. And that's the medicine, right? Like that's where you learn to be okay with it, like be okay with rejection.
Yeah.
And like learn like, well, I feel like there's a lot to learn in being rejected. So, well, that's not really a tool. It's more so just like advice. Like, know that that's going to happen and you are going to feel really terrible, but you can learn to work with that and be okay with it,
See it as like a learning opportunity.
Yeah. We've talked before about how Muhammad Ali trained for George Foreman in the Rumble in the Jungle. He hired a sparring partner to beat the fucking shit out of him every day, so that he could withstand those big punches. And that's essentially what you're doing with approaching. You're essentially
taking just body shots.
You're just taking body shots. Yeah. And that's going to build you up to be super strong. So there is, if you're able to get your mind back into there, it's a really good place to be proud of yourself for taking it. And, to Will's point, having those mindset scripts. And I love the idea of doing an audio script too. I would even recommend doing the audio script after you have a good interaction.
Remind yourself of how great it felt afterwards. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is that energy that you have after you have a really good interaction, talk to yourself from that place.
Yeah.
So you can feel that energy when you're in that low place.
And even like direct it to yourself in that low place. Like when you're in that high, be like, say it as if you're talking to yourself after you got rejected and be like, dude, it's all right. Like I just had this really great interaction. This girl was so happy.
Yeah. Remind yourself of that interaction. Yes.
I love that.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. I would make sure to do that the next time you have a good interaction, for sure. One other thing I want to mention on that point with the mindset scripts, I think something that I did with my last date that I had is before I had the date, I primed myself. So I just was like laying in my bed and I was like visualizing how that date was gonna go. And I think that if you're gonna be going out into the field, being able to sit with yourself beforehand and create like sort of a ground point with yourself where you're connected and you're setting up, I'm about to go out into this environment. There's going to be some fear going on here. I'm going to be talking to a lot of girls. There's going to be some girls that, are not going to respond as favorably. And maybe like imagining yourself in those situations where it doesn't go favorably, how you're going to react.
Yeah.
So setting yourself up with like the scripts at the beginning that, when you get into those spaces, you'll be able to think back to how you started and kind of get some clarity there.
Yeah, I think you mentioned Muhammad Ali, right? I heard something about Mike Tyson and how before a fight he would visualize just getting murdered, like he would visualize getting just wrecked in the ring, and
himself
then
getting beat up.
Yeah, he would visualize himself getting he would visualize everything. He'd visualize himself getting beat up, and then he'd also visualize himself like winning the fight.
Oh wow!
So he'd visualize himself dying in there, and then also winning. Wow. So like, yeah, like what do you think the value is in that? Like why do you think it helps to foresee like every outcome and like live it before?
I think because when Mike Tyson also said that boxing is an emotional game too. And I think it's because when these emotions hit, you're and you don't do the preparation, you're feeling, like Will was saying, just completely out of his element. So I think being able to visualize all those things will at least give you the sense that you can go back and say, you know, I've already experienced this. I've already, like, I know what this is going to be like. Like there's, it kind of eliminates a little bit of a fear of the unknown, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Rejection's only bad if you let it be. Like if you can stand in the face of rejection and like own it and just like, okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe even smile. Like,
And I think a lot of it, has to do with the fact that when we're in that state of rejection and we're in that state of emotional barrage, that there's an uncertainty about what it is. There's a unknowing of what it is. So if you can already go into it feeling those things, already touching to those emotions, at least they're, you know, they're going to kind of, those emotions are going to kind of feel like they have a home base maybe in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Yeah. Right. Like you've experienced this before. You're like,
Yeah.
I know what this is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't so bad.
Yeah.
I also wanted to say just like general mindfulness is like great for emotionally charged moments. Being able to like step away from the story and just see the emotion or feel the emotion for what it is.
Yeah. Will, what were you talking to me about yesterday? We were having a conversation about something about this. You are the narrator, right?
Oh, you're the narrator.
Talk about that.
Yeah, dude. Dude, Mike Gonzalez was talking at the men's group, and one thing really stuck out to me, which is what he was like, we think we're the character in our story, but we're actually the narrator. It's like all this shit in your mind, all these stories you're telling yourself about what is going on in your life, what is real, what is not real. That's all yourself coming up with it. It's like you are the narrator. You get to tell yourself a story about what the world is, what your place in the world is, all of that. So if you're like, oh, I just got rejected, I must be a piece of shit, I'm not worthy of anybody, like that's you're narrating your life.
Yeah.
You could instead be like, oh, this didn't work out with this girl, I'm the fucking man because I went and expressed my interest in her. Now I know I can take that and go give it to someone else. Like you get to pick the story.
Yeah. And it was pretty funny. Like I'm a little concerned about mentioning this, but
It means you should.
because landmark is I can't imagine that Landmark's going to go after me on this, but in the forum, it was like there was this moment where there was like the big build up, and it was the guy giving the forum was like, life is meaningless, and everybody just like dropped their drink and spit it out, and everybody was like, could not handle that feeling that this guy was saying life is meaningless, but really what he's saying is that there's no inherent meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's the meaning that you're giving it. And the same thing that you're saying with the narrator is that you are the one you're the one painting the picture. And emotions have a really, really good way of making you feel that that's not the case. Emotions come in and they take over and they convince you that what they're telling you is the reality. So having the ability to be present and to step in and take control of your own stories is really a superpower.
Like detach the thought from the emotion.
Yeah.
Like those are two different things.
Yeah.
It feels like they're the same thing. They're not.
Yeah.
So you detach them. And I feel like that's more along like your podcast. Something I do sometimes is I just like focus on like big exhales. And I don't know why, but I'm visualizing like I'm breathing out the emotion. I'm like, oh fuck, rejection. And I'm just like just breathe it out. And I swear it works.
Wow.
I feel better very quickly.
Yeah, dude. My breath work, the lady that I watch every day, she's always like, every time you exhale, breathe out your negative emotions. And it really feels like I get to do that.
It does, yeah.
It really feels like they do come out.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely some physiological thing going on where you're just like processing them by breathing more. Yeah. Anything else on rejection, approaching alone? I mean, it's great to have a friend there with you because they can just like pull you out of that. And they're a reminder of what you're there for.
Friend or coach. That's something that we include in our program. The ability for a coach to get on the phone with you to help you through your experience. So yeah, anybody that can be with you, it's so much easier with somebody else around.
Yeah. What's been your experience like alone versus in the group or with someone?
Yeah, I think the group is definitely nice because they give you that encouragement. So if you really have a lot of fear out of just the initial approach, and just getting over that discomfort and that uncertainty, I think the group helps give you that push. And you're right. If something is to go wrong, you kind of have like a nice cushion to fall back on. If it does go wrong, you fall back into this group of people who support you.
Yeah.
So that's really nice. Um, um, I personally, if a girl is alone and it's just me and this girl, like for example, earlier this week, who's on Tuesday evening, I wanted to do approaches specifically for this, right? I'd only done one, and I was like, okay. I was going into Sprouts. I was like, okay, there's going to be a girl in here. I gotta do an approach. Literally, I got out of my car, and immediately there's a very beautiful girl walking out into the parking lot, and I was like, no, because she was very attractive, so I didn't want to do it. But I just on a dime, I was like, okay, just go, because it was a lot easier for me because we were alone. The difficult thing for me is when I'm seen by a lot of people, maybe that I respect, and I'm rejected. So
That's Will's too.
yeah,
Right?
it honestly wasn't that hard when it was just me and her alone in the parking lot because there was no one else around.
You get rejected in private. It's nice.
Yeah, it's like, okay.
Don't tell anybody about this.
Yeah. But the other one that I did was at the gym, and that stung a little bit because she was on a bike, and I went and got on a bike next to her, and I was like, hi, how's it going? And I asked her name. I told her I thought she was attractive, and she said she had a boyfriend, and she wasn't necessarily interested, whatever. But the really tough part about it for me was I looked around at the room, and I just saw these like people noticing that I was approaching her, and that was the part that was difficult for me. So I don't know if that answers your question very well, but I think the hardest thing about approaching when I'm alone is, maybe that I don't have that support from people around me. But it's the most difficult when there's people that I respect around to witness me and see me.
Yeah. So there's, as long as you don't crumple under the rejection, I think honestly, even then, like no one's going to notice that. But I think me and Tim have talked through this, which is like, there are 3 reactions. It's like, first of all, like it's probably best not to care what people think. I do a lot of the time. And so I think there are 3 reactions that people will have, which is either jealousy, or envy, like I wish I could do that, or respect. So if someone is like doing approaches themselves, or they're capable of that, and they see someone else doing an approach, they're like, oh, nice. Like that's the way I am. If I see someone doing an approach, I'm like, that's awesome for that guy. And then if you are not at a place where you're comfortable doing it and you see someone doing an approach, you either are going to feel envious, like, oh, I wish I could do that, in a positive way of like, wow, look at that guy. Or it's some type of jealousy where it's like, oh, fuck that guy. He's doing an approach. Like, I hope he gets rejected.
Yeah.
And when you think through all 3 of those, none of them is really that bad. Like you don't want to let any of those affect you, right? When you think through that, if you're like, oh, that guy's just jealous of me, then you can feel a little bit of compassion for them. Like, okay, he probably wishes he was able to do this, and that's why he's kind of reacting in this way. It's not about me. This is all about him. And then the other 2 are obviously like good.
Yeah, they
so
respect
if you're like with
you.
people, if it's people that you respect, like maybe they respect you more now. because you're following your desires and you're expressing what you want to express.
That's true. I wonder where do you think that comes from? Why in my mind, because when I did that, in my mind, I'm thinking like that they're making fun of me, or that people see that I rejected. Oh my God, they're thinking negatively of me.
Yeah.
When I say it, it doesn't even seem realistic. That like people don't. Why would they think that? I wonder where that comes from.
Because we evolved in tribes, and we're very sensitive to how we're affecting that tribe. Because if we affect that tribe in a negative way, back in the day when we were hunter-gatherers, we would get kicked out of that tribe, and then we'd have to go and forage on our lonesome.
Or if you get rejected and other females see that, you kind of like, they'll be like, oh, why did he get rejected there? Maybe I should also reject him. And then you lose like mating opportunities.
Pre-selection.
Yeah. So if you get rejected once, like you might just not, like, that's it for your seed. It's staying with you.
Right. But you also have to understand that there's a way that you can approach where you aren't setting yourself up for rejection. If you're going to approach and you're telling the woman, hey, I had to come over because I think you're beautiful. That's just an observation.
Yeah.
They might take it to be the case that you're doing that to get the date, but you can also just go back and say, I wasn't asking for a date, but that's good to know. I mean, honestly, I would love to be friends too. There's no reason why you have to set yourself up for rejection. If it's merely just you expressing the way that you would like to see the world, it's not anything that anybody can reject.
Right.
I love that.
There was a clip that I put on Instagram. I'm not sure if it's still up there. I meant to put into a story, but it's from that movie Adaptation. Have you ever seen that movie with Nick Cage? Really good movie. And in the movie, it's basically like it's a allegory about the director who directs it. And he split himself out into twins. One of the twins is a super cynical guy, and the other twin is this happy-go-lucky guy. And at the end, they're about to meet their death or something like that. And they have this heart-to-heart talk where the cynical guy brings up to the brother, the thing I admire about you is that you're oblivious. And the happy-go-lucky brother is like, no, I'm not. And he's like, and the cynical brother's like, no, I meant that as a compliment. And he was talking about this experience that he had seeing his happy-go-lucky brother go up and talk to a girl in school. And he's having this great conversation with the girl, and like the girl's really sweet to him. But as soon as the happy-go-lucky brother walks away, they start making fun of him. And the cynical brother was like, how did you not notice that? And the happy-go-lucky brother was like, I did notice that, but I loved her, and her making fun of me and doing that was her business, and she couldn't take away the love that I had for her. And then he said the big quote at the end: "You are what you love, not what loves you." So there's this particular type of like ownership that you can have when you approach a woman that you think is beautiful, saying like, this is what I saw. This is the way it made me feel. And I own that. And your reaction to me doesn't take that away. Like that's who I am. I'm somebody that does this. And that's what, when I hear you talk about you're being in the gym and seeing all the people around you looking at you, instead of thinking like, oh man, they must be judging me, it's what's coming in my mind is like, man, they're probably fucking admiring you. And maybe because you haven't accepted that you're a guy that does that is the reason why you feel that you're being ostracized. Own up to the fact that you go up and talk to women wherever you are. That's who you are. Like, make a decision in your mind. That's the man I'm going to be. And then just live that out and watch all the other guys around there with their eyes, as Will was saying, with envy, because they're, you know, most likely, even when they have jealousy, they're most likely, you know, internally conflicted that they can't do the same thing that you do. But you have that opportunity to claim that version of yourself.
And there's an impulse to fall back and to fit back in.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's not what you want. That's not the man you are. Yeah. Dude, that's so good though, Tim, about not claiming, like you haven't claimed that you are that person yet. That's something I had to figure out too. It was like when I first started approaching, I was really embarrassed when people would see me do it. But it was just because I had not accepted it myself. Like, oh, I'm the man who does that.
Yeah. And
I
for
do
me,
that.
it's an aspect of just claiming my weirdness. Like I'm just a weird dude. I don't fit into the standard of the way that everything works. I'm just a little odd. And that allows me to go up and say ridiculous stuff wherever I am, you know.
Yeah. Okay, so how were your other approaches this week? So you said Sprouts, the gym.
Yeah, those are just them. Those are just those two.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I want to speak to the one at Sprouts because when I first started getting out after I broke up with my girlfriend, there was a moment at Sprouts where there was a really cute girl there, and I was not in the mood to do it, and I got tortured, like trying to get the drive to go up there, and I finally did, and when I did, it was her in an aisle, and there was a person that worked there right next to her. And I bailed, man. I fucking bailed because for me, it was about doing that in front of that one person. I had a really hard time. Especially, I think it also came down to the fact that person worked there too. Thinking that somehow, like, maybe they will, you know, say like, this is, you know, you're not supposed to do this in this place or something. I don't know.
Like they have some authority. You
Right.
can't do that here. Yeah.
I feel the same way. I struggle with the same thing.
Yeah.
When there's people around, I've had multiple instances in Sprouts when I was seeing an attractive girl and I'm waiting, like, all right, when she's away from everybody else, because I couldn't stand. Because people are going to notice. People are going to take notice of that always, you know, and whether it's for a good or bad reason. I mean, it's something to take notice of. Like,
I think though that you're the anxiety that you're feeling around that might be amplifying how much people are going to notice it though.
You're right.
Because I think if I'm reimagining myself in that same situation, I think if I went up to the girl and I was just like really, if I was just friendly and if I came in like a friend would come in, I don't think it would be really noticeable. I mean, I just, you know, I'd walk up to her and be like, "Hey, how's it going?"
Yeah.
Or something like that.
That's a very good point.
You know, and the person working there might just be so fixed on what they're doing, and even if they were aware of it, it may sound like I just ran into a friend.
Yeah.
You know, who's for me to say that it's going to be bellowing out that I'm like, I think you're really beautiful. I'd come over and tell you that. Like, I don't think it would come off like that. You know,
you're right. If you approach it with that really anxious, nervous energy, though, it's something that people will
maybe more so notice for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. If you go up with the like, and again, it's like if you're like, this is what I do, and you go in with that kind of casual attitude of like, this isn't a big deal. This is what I do, and you're just like, hey,
yeah,
and you treat her like you would talk to a friend,
like
even if you're like giving a compliment.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they're gonna be like, oh, that guy's talking to her, like they're just talking.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be a big thing.
Yep.
When this makes me think about the girl that I did approach in the parking lot, it was a pretty short interaction, and I just my only intention was to go tell her she's beautiful. I wasn't going to ask her a number or anything. I just going to go tell her she's beautiful because she was, and I thought so. So I walked up, and honestly, when I first walked up to her for like the first half of the interaction, it wasn't long, but it was really coming from a place of like being unattached to like what she thought. I'm just like, I'm going to go tell her she's beautiful. And it was like, she received it really well. And she was very sweet and kind. And like, she seemed flattered. And then there kicked in, there was the second half. I became kind of insecure because I was like, is she into me though? And like, oh, what do I say? And like that, this insecurity kicked in, and like me kind of, I guess, wanting validation from her, and it completely shifted her energy. And I felt like for a second there, yeah, that just, it wasn't as attractive to her. So yeah, I just noticing that how when you come from a place of genuine like kindness and giving a compliment and wanting to give rather than take or receive anything, it's received like really, really well.
Yeah. And women can pick up on those notes of insecurity and validation really quick. They've been dealing with that their whole entire lives.
Yeah. I think the next step for you is like, you gave the compliment and you were totally cool doing that. So the next step is like, how do I give an invitation without it being like, oh, do you like me? Like taking, you know? So it's like, how can you just be like, I think you're beautiful and I would love to take you on a date. You know, where it's just like, this is how I see the world. This is how I would like to see the world. This is how I would like things to happen. And you just tell her that. And then it's, you know, she can give you whatever back.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're not looking for any, you're just, again, expressing, this is how I feel. What she thinks about it is her business. Yeah. Let's see what happens.
Coming from a place of like, oh, I would enjoy being with you.
Yeah.
And I think you would enjoy it too. We should hang out, rather than, do you think I'm attractive?
Right.
Could you ever see yourself dating me? And like, is this going to work? And like, what do you think about me? Like, yeah.
I remember when I first started playing around with this like 3 years ago, and I was so anxious about it. All I wanted to do in my mind was just go up and say, "Hey, are you single?" Okay, bye. Like that's all I wanted to do. I didn't even want to open it up any bit further, because I just wanted to ensure that I was talking to somebody who wanted to talk to me. But the thing is that these women, they fucking love compliments. They, even if they got a boy, especially if they have a boyfriend, or especially if they're like married, they love that shit. They eat it up. But yeah, man. As far as doing the invitations, as far as saying, something about this interaction, something about meeting you that's making me really want to see you again. What was it? Just that you weren't just thinking in that kind of mode in that time? Is that why you got caught up, or what was going on? What got you into that validation phase there?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like that's just kind of my default if I'm not careful. Like, yeah, I don't know exactly what was going on. I think maybe I took notice of the fact that she was responding well. I'm like, oh, she likes me. She seems like she likes me. And then I was like, I wanted to keep that going. Maybe I grabbed onto that,
Maybe, and maybe you weren't. Is it possible that you weren't expecting that?
Yeah, you're right. I think walking up to, I was like, dang, she's really attractive.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think
so. Maybe it's going back important to the Mike Tyson thing, imagining it not working out, and imagine it working out.
Yeah.
And maintaining the same energy in either way it goes.
Yeah.
One other thing I was going to say, I think taking ownership again of how you feel, like you were saying with the lens of beauty, could really help you there. Because it feels like there's a part of you that is like, I only want to tell her that I'm interested in more if she is also interested in me.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to feel the rejection.
Yeah. So you have to get to a point where you're just like, I know that I would like to see her sometime outside of this. And that's for me to own. And it doesn't depend on if she likes me or not. I'm just going to tell her that. This is how I feel. So it's like taking ownership of that.
Yeah, man, everything we discussed just kind of came to a head there, right? Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, that's great. What ended up? How did that end? That interaction.
The one at Sprouts. Yeah, I didn't ask for a number or anything like that. I asked if she lived around there, and that was kind of it. I just, told her to have a great day, and that was the end of it.
That was it.
Mm-hmm.
Were you fearing the rejection? Like you felt the energy shift, and then you're like, "Oh shit, I might get rejected if I go for more."
Yes and no. Yes, no. Honestly, no. It didn't. I'm actually going on a date tomorrow, and another one on Monday.
Okay.
So there's two girls that I've met recently that I'm like kind of excited, and I didn't really want to go on another date.
Gotcha. Okay. So you just weren't in a place where you were looking for it.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's hard to say because that girl was really attractive and she seemed really cool. So I think I was still sort of a little bit of afraid to ask her. But
Sure.
Do you want to dig into these dates you're going on, or do you not?
You know what? I'll say one thing. Like I haven't even met one of these girls. It's both of them on dating apps.
Okay.
I'm curious to hear y'all's thought on dating apps. But one on Monday, I'm really excited to meet this girl, and mainly because we exchanged some messages on Hinge, and then she sent me a voice message, and it felt really intimate. Like she was very, like more intimate. And I also just learned a lot more about her, and I feel like we could communicate a lot better. And we've been exchanging voice messages since.
Yeah.
So I'm just really excited to meet her. So I guess what I'll say about like that is like, I just think that's really powerful, the like using voice messages. I've heard y'all talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
And this,
we love them.
Yeah.
We love the voice notes.
Yeah. Cause it's a little intimidating. Like when she sent that, I was like, oh shit. I don't know why, but it was, and it was way more intimate. And, yeah.
Do you do that with other girls you message on Hinge?
I never do that. I'm going to start.
I think you should be the one starting those.
You're
now.
right.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, I had never really done that before, but I think it's great.
Yeah, dude, huge advantage. Huge advantage. Because most guys are probably not doing that.
It is a little scary sending them, like when you haven't done it before, because it's like, oh, this is kind of not normal. This is a little weird. What's she gonna think of me for sending these? But yeah, they're great. You can like convey actual emotion. You can talk how you would talk to her, and you don't have to like try and overthink how you're phrasing your text. And yeah, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, text is the absolute worst way to communicate interest and to create the opportunity for connection. It just like so much can go wrong from text. Yeah, I've had a lot of experiences where there's been a lot of misunderstanding. There's been a lot of things miscommunicated through text, when if you're just doing that audio message, so much of it can become clear. So much can become apparent.
Yeah.
Also, I also feel like, especially if you're meeting somebody on a dating app, or say you met somebody at the park at one of the approaches, and then you get their number. And it's like, if you start exchanging voice messages, like there's more of a buy-in,
Yeah.
There's more intimacy there. Whereas just when you're exchanging texts, it feels like people don't really
care.
Yeah. And you can hide behind text messages, but to get on a voice message, like people can hear your intentions, and
it feels like there's like a real person on the other side of it. Yeah. Versus text that doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your overall experience with dating apps? What would you say?
I think honestly, I've been on Hinge for I've been on Hinge for like 3 or 4 years, just like using it on and off. But
Mhm.
this like past year, I probably got on and off of it a couple of times. Um, my experience has been all over the place. I feel like these past couple of weeks, I mean, both these two girls I met on Hinge, and I'm excited to meet one of them. I already have met the other one, and she was really cool too. So I've been having more success on them.
One date so far? Or?
One date. Yeah, we've gone on one date.
Okay.
And um yeah, it's been scattered though, because I've part of my experience has also been that I will meet people and I'll get really excited to meet them, or I'll meet people and we'll start talking, and then they'll ghost me and lose interest, or yeah, that seemed to have happened a lot to me.
Mhm.
I mean, but recently it's I feel like it's turned out pretty well. I've been having more success with it. Yeah. Um, yeah. What has your experience been like, or
With
yours?
dating apps?
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been on in like since 2020, I think. I met an ex-girlfriend on there, and then I was like, I'm done with him. So after that, I have not been back on. Um, I just did not have very much success with it. Um, yeah, I think I was on Tinder, and I was similar. I would go on and off. Like I would be on it for a bit, and then I was like, "Fuck this! I don't want to do this anymore." And then I would like go off for a couple months, and then I'd one day be like, "Oh, I should try that again. Maybe it'll work better this time." Um, but yeah, it never really amounted to much. A few dates, and then that one relationship. But yeah, what do you think, Tim?
I've been on this earth a little longer than y'all, and I was around when all of these dating apps came out, using them, and it's gone through you know, a whole evolution. I would say there were periods where I met some really attractive girls, didn't have any problems with it, went on amazing dates. Um, but when 2020 came around and I got single again, I was using them, and I would have like a handful of dates, but it just dried up. Like I just got to the point where nothing was working,
Mhm.
so I had to bounce off. But I think that they have gone through an evolution, and um, I think that there's a lot. I know that even attractive girls are really just not even messing with them these days.
Yeah, this is anecdotal evidence, but a lot of the girls we interviewed for that ad, um, even if they were on dating apps, they were like, "Yeah, but I don't take it seriously. Like I maybe swipe a little bit for fun, but it's."
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I do think a lot of girls don't really. I think there's a lot more guys, percentage wise,
Yeah,
which just makes it harder for all the guys. And then there's also the kind of psychological effect for girls of like, there's so many options that any one guy, it's easy to just ghost and then be like, oh, but there's another one. I can always just swipe and find another guy.
Yeah. Yeah. What's coming to me is that it's like, it's a good, I feel like it's a supplement, to your
Yeah.
dating, like rather than you shouldn't be looking to Hinge
The way.
to find your dates. Like, I don't know.
Right.
I agree with that
Mhm.
100%. Supplement for sure.
Like I've had luck with it recently, but I mean, like I said, this past year was just, that app just frustrated the heck out of me.
Yeah.
And I'd also feel like these past couple weeks or this past month, I've been trying to use it with more intention. So like if I get on, I try not to get on because it would become it would become my Instagram, like I would, let's go swipe on some women,
Yeah.
and that's like super stimulating. And, so try to not to do that. So if I was going to use it, it would be get on, look at like all these girls on here and then pick one that really stands out to me, like her, send her a nice message, put my phone down, you know, and then let that sit. And if nothing happens, maybe then look for another one. But instead of just like, oh, she's not, oh yeah, oh, and then like try and just, what would that be the equivalent of? Like if you just like you're fishing and you're just casting a net instead of like actually just trying to catch one big fish, you know? I don't.
But I like what you're saying about like it became your Instagram, because like dating apps can become just like entertainment in a way. Like you're getting your dopamine hits.
Yeah.
So making sure not to fall into that and being like, okay, I'm gonna go use Hinge right now and have like a purpose behind it, or like setting aside time where you're gonna do it, but where you're like, I'm actually looking to meet someone. I'm not just looking to swipe and like
Precisely. Yeah.
have fun with it.
Yeah, man, I was spending hours
Yeah.
just like violently swiping.
Yeah. And something I'll bring up too, like, I don't know what y'all's, I kind of think I do, but I don't know what y'all's view on like porn is, but like I've months ago really tried to like, you know, not use it at all. Like my thing on that too is that I feel like everybody's different. I've heard people say like, there's nothing wrong with porn. You can use porn. That's fine if anyone wants to have that perspective. But like for me, it's been something I've really had tough time controlling myself about. And I feel like Instagram can be very similar because you're scrolling through, just looking at attractive women. It can be very overly stimulating. And then Hinge can also be that way too, or any dating app. So you can just find yourself,
in the hole.
Overstimulating.
Dude, I was having that day at Zilker. I was overstimulated, bro.
Yeah.
Too many girls in bikinis.
Yeah.
I don't know. We have never talked about porn on here. I'm pretty anti-porn. I don't think it's good for anybody. I think it's too much. But I don't know what you think on that.
Yeah. I don't quite have an opinion. I don't quite haven't really thought about it that much.
Yeah.
But I can imagine that it does get in the way of things for sure.
I think for like especially for like young guys, it can be like when you're like a teenager.
Oh yeah.
Oh
it
yeah.
can be fucking like it just changes the way you see women. And yeah,
there's also a thing with porn where it's like your threshold continues to be elevated. I never experienced that with myself, but I have heard that.
I feel like growing, like when you grew up, it was probably much more limited.
Magazines, baby.
Limited in access, like what you could get. And for us, it was like whatever the fuck, whatever you want.
Yeah.
And so you just keep stepping it up until like you're into some dark shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I've realized like, when I like at least limited my consumption of that and then Instagram and then dating apps and all that, it also increases my motivation. Like I'm more, I feel, I don't know, maybe I just have my sexuality under control, you know, in a sense. And, I feel more inspired to want to communicate with women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a real thing. Is if you're just getting your fix from porn, it's like,
Yeah.
you're not looking as much for the real connections in the real world. Yeah. What do you got, Tim?
You want to hear? So, okay. So yeah, where I'm at is, I've been going through some struggles in the last 2 weeks, and, the journey of being an entrepreneur is absolutely an unpredictable one and challenging one at times. And that's what I'm going through with that. And Will and I were talking on the phone last night, and he was asking me, what's going on with you? Are you have you been out approaching? And I'm like, oh man, I really want to, but all of this, all of this stress that I've been under has been really taking a toll, and it's hard for me to imagine myself out there. And then I said something like, and I'm making mistakes. I'm making excuses is what I said. And I'm making excuses. Because really, and what was really interesting about just admitting that to myself, that I was kind of holding back because of all of that, is I started to realize that I was thinking about dating on my old timeline where, I was working in tech and I had money to blow everywhere. And all my dates reflected that, especially, like would blow so much money on dates, just having a really good time. And I started thinking differently. I started thinking maybe there's a way to have dates where I'm not blowing money, and maybe that's okay. And I started thinking like, boy, that's just going to help. That's just going to force me to be more creative. And that's actually an exciting thing. Why would I miss out on the opportunity to be more creative with my dates and do more interesting out of the box stuff? So that after having that conversation with you, Will, like I lit up. Like I felt very empowered.
Yeah.
I felt really, really fucking good that I can still give this other thing to myself. And I have to say another thing is that, in a place where there is a lot of struggle, there's also a feeling of nothing to lose. And that I honestly think that that's probably what has been helping me a little bit to get back into the swing of things, because there's so much less pressure when you don't really have anything to lose going up and approaching. So I've been kind of feeding off of that advantage from this state that I'm in. But yeah, I was totally making excuses, and as a result, I was um, I was depriving myself of the things in life, and I need everything I can get now. So, you know, why not also acknowledge the fact that I need women, and that's going to, especially being an approach coach, it's definitely going to help me on my fucking journey. So let's just fucking go.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you have been dating. Like you just went on a date
Last Friday, yeah.
last Friday, but it was like more about getting yourself into that state of like, okay, I'm dating. I'm
Yeah.
going out, approaching and
Yeah.
meeting women.
Yeah. But, because I'm being conservative with money, going on that date made me, after I went on it, because I paid for all our drinks, I ended up feeling really uncomfortable about how much I spent, you know? So, that kind of, I think that was the thing that kind of pushed me back, is thinking like, oh, I can't be going on dates because I'm going to be spending a lot of money. It's like, no, figure out a way to have dates without spending money.
Yeah.
Fucking pack a box of wine in your backpack and bring some glasses out to the park or something like that. Figure something out where you're not having to gouge yourself. Those are fun. Those are fun opportunities, and women love seeing you get creative with dates. Like the most boring dates are the ones that are just the most obvious ones. So, and I just want to put this message out there, because I know that a lot of guys that are, struggling and coming into it through our ads, they're always waiting for the perfect time. And, I think I was also in a way thinking that there was going to be a perfect time for me to get out there too, but there is no perfect time. Now is the time, because I've talked about this before, and it's just something that I don't know why keeps slipping from my mind while I'm going through all of this, but having women in our lives is actually like a massive advantage to addressing all the things that we have, something to look forward to. Like when we're in the darkest places in our lives, like having that outlet can just amplify everything that you're doing. I'm already feeling it, even though I haven't had the opportunity to get out there since our talk, but like I'm already feeling like energized, and that's a really fantastic feeling.
That's great.
Yeah.
I loved what you're saying about like nothing to lose. I have that same feeling sometimes when there's a girl who I'm like, she's way out of my league. Maybe, fuck it, I'll go for it. And then it feels like, I don't know if it's a good thing, but because I'm expecting nothing to happen, it's like, this would be crazy if it happened. And then I don't feel as scared going for it,
Mm-hmm.
or like putting myself out there.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah, but that's a great spot that you got to.
Thank you, Will.
And we talked about this a lot last episode about how like, if you own your situation, like what's there to lose?
Yeah.
My roommate was talking about, I think he'd be okay with me saying this. He was talking about how he doesn't like want to go meet girls right now because he's sleeping on a camping mattress. And I was like, dude, if you just own that, if you're like, I want to take you back to my camping mattress, like if you can just own the fact that you're sleeping on a camping mattress, like she's gonna love it. There's
Own
no
it
like,
and be okay with it, and acknowledge it as if it's like, duh, of course I'm sleeping on a camping mattress. I'm trying to do all this stuff. What do you expect me to be
like
doing?
I just moved here. Of course I am.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If you acknowledge it as being something that is normal, that is obvious, then they're going to be able to do that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if it's eating away at you, then they're going to pick up on that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think actually I went on a date like months ago, and my job, I'm really thankful for it, and it's a good job, but like something I've been working with the past months is like feeling like I need to make a career shift. And on this date, this specific time in my life, I was feeling very insecure about the fact that I wasn't working in the right field. And I expressed to this girl, like I brought that energy to it of like, yeah, like, I think this falls in line with what you're saying. I was bringing this energy of, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. And I feel like it was very unattractive to her. Whereas, on this past date, like I'm more comfortable with it, and I'm like more comfortable in the fact that I'm figuring out exactly what it is I want to do. But this job, like it's perfect for me right now. I'm in the process of figuring it out. And I feel like she didn't actually take notice of the fact of when I told her what I did. And I don't know if that makes any sense. But I guess what I'm trying to say is when you're expressing some aspect of yourself and it's coming from a place of insecurity inside of you, then they're going to pick up on that insecurity. Whereas if you're comfortable with it, then
Yeah. Or if you're like expecting them to think it's weird.
They're going to notice.
Then they're gonna
Expecting
think
them to
it's
think it's weird is really what is at the heart of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But you're by withholding those insecurities, you're missing out on the opportunity to let them know that you're someone that is cognizant of the fact that you need to be fulfilled and that you're not being fulfilled right now, and that it's maybe you're in a comfortable spot with this job and everything, but it's completely on your mind that you're going to be making a change. Women love to hear that you're somebody that's in touch with yourself like that, and that for my instance, I'm on a harrowing journey of entrepreneurship, and I'm living the fucking TED Talk that everybody says at the beginning of the intro, where you're living on ramen noodles, all that kind of stuff. That's where I'm at, and that's what people who venture off and become entrepreneurs usually go through. So if I can just own that as just being, that's obviously that's my point in the journey. That's what I'm doing, but I'm also onto something that's my true passion, and something that I'm finally like getting to live, and all that kind of stuff. They're going to love to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
It's the thing behind it that they care about.
Yeah.
It's not actually the trappings. Yeah. Well, it's a good spot you're in. Get out there.
What about you, Will?
Will is falling in love. I hadn't seen the whole Instagram thing you put together until just today, where you talked about me. Like, Now he might be falling in love. And like,
Yep.
that was so good. She's sweet as pie.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm seeing this girl, and it's been going well. I will talk. I'm a little nervous to talk about this, but there was like a situation on Monday or Tuesday
The void.
where I was sent to the void.
What is it? What does that mean?
I've been there before with her. It is the place you go. So this girl like texts back pretty regularly, like pretty quickly. It's just normal. And this one day I sent her a voice note at night, and it wasn't like asking for anything. There was no like expected response based on what I said, but I just kind of expected it in my mind. Like, oh, she'll respond really quick because that's what she does. And then she didn't respond that night. And then I like woke up, I checked. I was like, oh, fuck, why is she not responding? Throughout the day, nothing. So I was in the void that whole day. And what happens in my void is I like start spinning stories up of like why she's not responding. It's like, oh, she found someone else. She actually doesn't like me. She's not interested anymore. All of that. And so I got to sit in that. And then I told Tim about it later in the day. And I think that was like the key thing is I need to like vocalize that so that I can recognize, oh, these are just stories. They're not actually real. This is just me, having an emotion and reacting to this thing. And so it's so funny because first of all, I had to remember, oh, like, who am I? Like, I don't need this girl. I'm getting to a place where I feel like I needed her. Like because we had such a good time together that my brain started associating her with like, oh, this is happiness. So this was a great learning moment where I could like take a step back and be like, oh, remember who I am. And like clockwork, as soon as I got to that point, I was driving to the gym and I had no music on, no podcast. I was just thinking, and I was like, okay, I remember exactly now who I am, all the shit I have going. I don't need this girl. I like her, but I don't need her. And then like when I got to the gym, I got a message from her. And it was like I had to go through that moment of being like, okay, relax, dude. Like, you're okay. These are just stories you're telling yourself. And then I got the text.
That gif of Leslie Nielsen coming out of the coffin and hitting his head on a chandelier was like the perfect gif that you could have sent.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you're doing.
Coming out of the void.
Yeah. Yeah. Good on you for recognizing that you needed to reach out and get some perspective.
Yeah. And just, again, just saying it, like, and being like, oh, I'm in the void. Instead of making up, the stories.
Yeah, dude. And I think also a really big part of that too is going back to your origin story and going back into who am I? What am I made of? What have I gotten? So what have I accomplished so far? That's something that I'm having to do on a regular basis. It's very hard to keep track of that because when the moment comes, the emotions flood and you're just stuck in you're stuck in the moment with your circumstances and you're totally detached from what has made you. What's your value? What's your worth?
Yeah. I think one of the reasons we call it the void is it's an emptiness of like the whole weekend I was getting constant validation, right? Tim actually pointed this out to me. He was like, why were you not feeling that before? And then you started feeling it then. And so when I had these thoughts of like insufficiency or unworthiness, they would be pushed away pretty quickly because I was like, oh, she's right here. Like she's with me. Obviously she likes me. But then the void is like the emptiness where like I don't get the validation. There's no external validation. So that's when the real shit comes up. And that's when those things like can like take over.
That's when you start noticing the fact that
you're having them.
That you're working that way, that you're like feeding off the validation.
Yeah. Yes.
Because without the validation, then you start seeing that, like, oh, this is how I'm behaving.
And there's like the stories that you've been telling yourself in the background get to surface. And so again, it's a great learning experience. It sucks though when you're in it. It really sucks. But you get to see like, oh, this is the shit that's been going on in the background. It gets to come to light.
I kind of have a question for y'all.
Go for it.
Like, what would you say when once you recognize that you're seeking that validation a lot? Because I'm doing the same thing. Imagine a lot of guys are. What are some ways to deal with that? You know what I mean? Like, what are some ways to? Is it just a practice of like you were saying, coming back to knowing who you are and
I think
what you value?
the way to stop seeking external validation is not to try to stop seeking external validation. It is to try to start self-validating. And so that's building some kind of relationship with yourself and like working on your self-love, your self-worth, self-trust, all of those things. Because our mind works in weird ways. And it's like when you try to stop something,
You make it worse.
yeah, it doesn't work. You have to just like move your attention to something else. So yeah, whatever that means, like building that relationship with yourself and that like respect for yourself to the point where that's not what you're talking to girls for. That's not the purpose of it.
Yeah, this is what we end up coaching our clients in the program, where we start them at, is we start them by saying, this is not 3 months of dating. This is 3 months of understanding yourself and creating a connection and relationship with yourself inside of this arena, right? Because we are just internally programmed to seek validation from others. That's the way we've been brought up. That's the way we've experienced everything in life. Our personalities are built off of seeking that external validation, that we're good people, that I'm a nice guy, that I'm successful. Other people see me successful, so I am successful. And much of what we do in the program is we end up working with you on that front of establishing that relationship, that connection, that love story with yourself, really, where you can go back to the origin story that I mentioned, and see everything that you've done up until this point and have that be your value, as opposed to the way that you come off in the world. So starting there is the big part. But for guys that are wanting to get this skill down, a big part of what's going to make them feel validated is their purpose in the journey. Like, why am I out there doing this? Why am I out here getting rejections on a regular basis? Sticking to that story of purpose is going to bring about the confidence that's not going to really require the validation anymore. So it's partly new relationship with yourself. It's partly seeing yourself doing the work are going to be the big things that I think are going to take that need down.
The quote I really like that I might have mentioned here before is the work works on you more than you work on it. And I feel like it's super applicable here, which is like, you're not doing this work for the benefits, like for the dates or for the girls. You're doing it
for the internal work
for yourself. So when you start seeing these things as learning experiences, then you take away any need for validation.
For sure, because if you think about it, you're marketing a product, and that product is yourself. So having that product at the highest level of quality, at the most desirable level of quality, that's what creates the opportunities for attraction. Attraction is deflected and stifled by insecurity and anxiety. When you're in a state of insecurity, anxiety, validation, attraction is not able to broadcast itself.
Yeah. A good product advertises itself.
Boom.
That's a good another quote.
It's great.
It's like if you're spending too much time, I feel like seeking validation is like you're trying to advertise yourself as better than like you think you are. So it's like let yourself just be the advertisement. Stop trying to like make yourself look better or see if people like it.
Damn.
But that's definitely challenging thing to work through.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else? Either of you guys?
I don't think so. I think this was a long episode, but that's okay.
Yeah, it was good. It was a good one.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
All right. Thanks again for joining us, folks. My name is Tim Bray. You can find out more about the Art of Approach program at www.theartofapproach.com, or you can message me on Instagram at _coach_. I do this every episode at _approach_coach. And just want to give a special thanks to Dalton for joining us today. We really enjoyed his insights and his particular problems that he's looking to solve. And we hope to have him back very soon.
Yeah. Dalton, do you have anything you want to share? Like where to find you, your podcast?
Sure. Yeah. The podcast that I host is Don't Think, Breathe. It's on like mental health and self-development and spirituality, a lot of different kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Cool. And that's on Instagram as well. Same. Don't Think, Breathe.
Yeah. Instagram, it's Don't Think, Breathe with one T and Don't Think. But yeah.
Don't Think.
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. Thank you all for having me.
Sure. We'll definitely put that
talking.
in the show notes too.
Sweet. I appreciate
Cool.
that. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
for watching.
Dalton. Thank you, Will. Thanks, guys.